Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending and welcome back once again to Stephen Bolden of 12-3's ACT webinars, our virtual user groups, as we sometimes call them. Today's topic is going to be about custom activity types on your ACT calendar. And this one came to me as a suggestion from one of my good customers over here in Western New York. And they wanted to know how they could add an email as a type of activity type they could add on your calendar. So for those of us familiar with the ACT calendar, you know that you can schedule calls or meetings or to-dos, but this is something I run into all the time where somebody says, we want to have an activity type called an estimate or a sample sent or send quote or whatever it may be in your line of work that it is that you'd like to have your sales team be able to put on there as a custom activity type. So as always, we are working out of the ACT 2017 demo database. I'm using ACT version 19.2 premium, although this feature that I'm showing today goes back many, many versions of ACT, at least 10 years, as far back as I can remember. So I've got my calendar up in the work week view here, and I've put some sample activities onto the calendar just to show the different activity types. I made a sample to-do, a meeting, a call, a personal activity, an appointment, and a vacation. And by this point, hopefully all of us are well aware how to add new things to the calendar. You can choose to either go to the contact record and click the schedule call, schedule meeting, or schedule to do button on top. I do prefer this method because it will automatically associate the correct contact with the activity if you do it from their contact record. But you can also schedule an activity from the calendar by going to the calendar side and choosing the schedule call, meeting, or to-do button up here. Just when you do it from the calendar side, you sometimes need to be a bit more careful about who you're scheduling it with. You may have to select the contact out of this list. If it'll choose whoever was currently pulled up there already. You can also double click on the calendar or highlight and drag a certain section. But when you do, the schedule activity window appears and you can choose your activity type, where we can choose call, meeting, or to do, appointment, personal activity, or vacation. So customizing this list, how would we want to go about doing that? It's very easy. Cancel out of this. These steps are up here under schedule, manage, activity types. And when you pull up the activity types screen, it shows all of the activity types that you have in the database. And these are the 6 activity types that are in there by default. Everybody has these 6 activity types, or at least they started with them, until you can actually delete and remove some of them if you're not using them. You can edit some of the existing ones to change some of the features. These ones like call and meeting to do are kind of static. They're not really editable. But if you add your own, then you certainly have a lot of control. So I'm going to add a new one here called an email. Now, in my mind, I would actually say an email kind of falls under the umbrella of to-do anyway. But because I'll be sending this email over to this guy then for the video, we'll use his example. So if I want to add an activity type called email, so I type in the name of what I want it to be in the list, and the active checkbox says allow new activities of this type. So that's good. I'll turn it on. The reason that checkbox exists is because if I don't want this in my list anymore, I could delete it out of the list entirely, but that sometimes makes ACT go a little screwy because in the background it has these activities in the SQL database are associated with that activity type. Just suffice it to say that keeping it active or inactive is probably the better way to go about removing these further down the road if you choose to. So we're going to add the name as active. And then it puts some sample results in here. We can say completed or not completed. Similar to how calls have a result, it could be call attempted, call received, call left voicemail, or call not completed. You can complete your own results here. I can call this result name. I can say email sent, and I can say email not sent. And just for the sake of being a thorough here, maybe I could even add in something called like email bounced. This would all depend on your personal needs of what kind of outcomes can you envision of being a potential result of an email activity. And at that point, we're kind of done. We can also set a default value here for convenience to save a click, so that when you're clearing an activity off your calendar or finishing up to add something to the history, you know, when you check something off the calendar, the default value that automatically fills in that box. For example, if you clear a call off your calendar, it will say call completed is the default. You just want to check whatever box you think might be the result 51% of the time. And also, you can give it a custom icon if you want. You probably don't have too many custom icons on your computer, but if you really wanted to make this pretty and do it the right way, you can say browse and find an image file. Maybe go on the internet and try to download a little image of an email icon and save it in your pictures folder, and you can browse and actually add a custom icon for it. Would be kind of nice. I'm just going to leave it with this default icon here. It's like a calendar with some lines next to it. And I say okay, and sure enough, there she is. And close that out. And now the next time I go to schedule something on my calendar and open up this drop down, I have email. It's its own custom activity type. Ta-da. And if I this propagates throughout the system elsewhere. For example, if I clear this activity and now it wants to put it into the history the same way that clearing any activity would, it will ask me, you know, for the results. You can say email sent and add it to the history. You can type some details down here, just like any other normal history would. And it's neat because if I go back under the contact history, it actually does log it as its own result type. In this case, email sent. I could also make this estimate sent. For example, if you're somebody who does a lot of on-site estimates or quotes or free consultations, maybe you'd have your own custom activity type called free consultation or something like that. And then it would be its own result here in the results column in history. And you can even filter on it, just like you can do with any type of history. This will be part of a session I have coming up in a week or two about the ACT history list. But you can filter the types of history you are looking at with these checkboxes here. And you can expand with the plus sign to see more options. And you do have your custom activity types to appear in here so that you can actually filter based on exactly what you want to see. They are true activity types here within the system. I hope that was insightful. Maybe that gets the gears turning a little bit about something that you've that you could use at your company if you've been recording a certain type of regular activity that people use all the time, but they're just putting it under the umbrella of something else, and it's really more of its own category. Perhaps this will be very useful for you. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat now. As always, I greatly welcome you to suggest more future topics. I love the suggestions because I know that people find them useful. So, yeah, I hope everybody has a lovely Tuesday. Have a great day. Bye.